Okay, so the story goes, basically a couple years ago, I was just hanging out, and all of a sudden I heard this word in my head very clearly, Heath. And I had heard that word before, had no idea what it meant though, so I looked it up, and it means open, uncultivated field in Britain. But it was pretty loud, so I tried to I knew it was the Lord talking to me, which is strange, but it was more kind of like a riddle. Like I didn't know what it meant or the purpose of it was. But I really just kind of pressed in and kept listening. A couple months later, another word popped in my head after something really bad happened. And the word was wold, W-O-L-D. That's a word I'd never heard of before. Probably most of you haven't. And so I looked that one up, and it was an open, uncultivated field in Britain. So I knew that I was onto something, but again, still a little bit of a mystery. Time went on, and I'm just going to kind of shorten the tale, but basically, he showed me on a map. He had me look somewhere on a map in Oxford, and I noticed a field. And so it's called Port Meadow. Port is short for portal. And when I got on Wikipedia to kind of research this thing, I realized that one of the first things it says is that the field is very important archaeologically and historically because they have records that King Alfred gave it to the freemen of Oxford in about 1000 AD. And he declared that this field should never be touched. So it had never been cultivated. And so therefore it was kind of a sacred place, and also, again, had a lot of historical and archaeological importance. I researched more and realized how many famous people from Oxford, which is probably the epicenter of literature and influence in the Western world, walked through that field and had encounters in that field. One of them specifically was Charles Dodgson, aka Lewis Carroll, and he was rowing up the river next to the field with a bunch of his friend and a couple of kids, and started telling a story about Alice falling down a rabbit hole. Well, so I went eventually to the field and had some interesting things happen, but that's not the point of this story. The point of this story is later on I realized that there's a well next to the field. I didn't realize it at the time, and that is that well right there. And that well is called the Treacle Well. And in Alice in Wonderland, this is the well she falls down. Now it's obviously a rabbit hole, but quickly Lewis Carroll describes it as a well. And so that's the well. And the story of this well is actually in real life. St. Frieswide, the patron saint of Oxford, was running across Port Meadow to hide from this suitor that wanted to marry her, and she wanted to be sacred and a nun and give her life to God. Well, eventually she ran across Port Meadow, and the guy who was pursuing her, this kind of king-like figure, was blinded by God. And so she prayed for him, and she found this well, and used the water from the well and healed him. And so this has been a pilgrimage site for many people since the 8th century who have visited this well, and all sorts of miracles apparently have occurred there. I got some of the water from the well, and I'm going to bring it home. This is the church that was founded, and it's quite an amazing place. I'm here all by myself. It's the perfect Oxford day. Kind kind of wet, quiet, not a person around. The door was closed when I got here, and I sort of assumed that it would not open, but it did. So I will show you inside. As I was saying, people take pilgrimages here from all over the world. And before I left for this trip, I knew I needed to kind of go back here to see this place and do a few other things, but one of the main things was to visit this well. And so I was, wondering, how am I going to get there? I don't have time, but I just kept hearing the word pilgrimage. And so I finally had some time to sit down and listen. And I pulled out my phone to look for a flight. And this little bird hops in front of me. And it was kind of eerie. It's hard to explain, but it felt like there was something special about it. And so I watch him, and he flies down and lands on the street sign of my neighborhood, the corner of by my house. And he lands on this, the word was Palmer. And so I had been asking God for a sign if he wanted me to go back. And so I watched this little bird. He flies and lands on this sign Palmer. And so I look it up, and the word Palmer translated is pilgrim. So this is literally as I have my phone open looking for flights. The next day I booked the flight. The day after that I fly down here, and here I am. So what's the point? There's a lot to it, but I think a lot of it is just living in wonder. That Port Meadow is a wonderland, and that is literally where Alice went. And sometimes going down the rabbit hole with the Lord is an adventure, and you don't know what you're going to find on the other side. But the point is, I think, more than anything that you, quote, accomplish, it's living in the sense of an adventure with God, knowing that he's directing you, but yet not knowing what the next step is, and turning the page with him in your story. So may we all live in a wonderland, and may we all be in tune with the Holy Spirit, who is the great adventurer and the great storyteller of our lives.